Hello everybody, today we are going to discuss On His Being Arrived at the Age of 23 by John Milton. So it's a sonnet, a Miltonic sonnet of course. Now sonnet, as you already know, that it's a poem of 14 lines written in Iambic Pentameter, and it has a certain rhyme scheme. And here too Milton follows a certain rhyme scheme, though this form was started by Petrarch, and after his name we can say eponymous, it was called Petrarchan sonnet, and it had a certain rhyme scheme that was ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. But here in this poem the poet has used a variety of that particular kind, and here I can say it is A, B, B, A. The first part is the same, A, B, B, A. Octave, that means 8 lines, and then in quatrain it is C, D, E and D, C, E. So in the second part of the sestet, which is composed of 2 tercets, we can see a difference. Here it is D, C, E. So when you match the rhyme scheme, you will find the second tercet of the later part is D, C, E. The rhyme scheme used there is D, C, E, which is a deviation from the Petrarchan pattern of sonnet. So an iambic pentameter, so here a certain meter, that is iamb, is used, and in iambic pentameter what happens, in one line there are 5 foot. Now 5 foot means 1 foot contains 2 syllables, and in iambic meter what happens, the stress pattern is weaken, strong, weaken, strong, weaken, strong, or unstressed or stressed, unstressed or stressed. That kind of pattern is followed. That is called iambic pentameter. For the lower classes, that is class 12, that is not important to go into depth, but yes, for the higher classes you must know that what is iambic pentameter. So iambic pentameter has been used here. And to say something more of John Milton, I can say that he is quite popular because of his 2 epics, that is Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained. His verse tragedy Samson Agonistes is also quite popular, and these works, especially these 2 epics, he wrote when he was blind. He got blind at the age of 44, and after getting blind he wrote these 2 epics. He dictated actually his 2 nephews and his daughter, and they wrote for him, and thus he wrote these 2 famous epics for which he is known the world over, that in the literary society, in the literary circle, he has such a big name, all because of his genius for such creative works. And here in this poem we are going to discuss that how he presents a conflict between 2 ideas, that is free will and predestination. And John Milton, he was, we can say, a Puritan. He followed the Calvinist ideas as against the Roman Catholic beliefs. So here in the first part he is presenting what a sort of free will, that complaining, we can say, complaining about the kind of physical appearance he had, which actually betrayed his maturity and all. So he is complaining about all that, but in the later part he asserts his faith in God, in God's say decisions and in his destiny, that what God's will is, that will be done. So he asserts his belief, his faith in God in the later part of this poem, which is as per the Calvinistic ideas or Puritan ideas, the Protestant beliefs in those times. So John Milton actually followed those things, and he was and here one more thing that I must say, that this poem is a lament as well. Actually, before Milton, the sonnets were love centered, especially the poet would address some beloved in the poem, and that way the sonnets would be written. But here in this sonnet it is different, and so Milton, as I should say, he used sonnets to express his religious sentiments and beliefs as well, not just for love. He showed that sonnets can be written for, so he deviated from the former ideas and beliefs and the patterns of sonnets, and so, and he, as he used this pattern of sonnet quite a lot, so after him they were also known as Miltonic sonnets. As before him it was only Petrarchan sonnet, but after Milton popularizing this form of sonnet, he popularized this form of sonnet, and so they were also known as Miltonic sonnets. So here let's see that how in the first part he is lamenting over his not say his physical appearance not showing the maturity, and how time has flown away. The 23 years of his life are gone and he hasn't done anything creative, so he is quite sorry for that. He is lamenting over that loss, but in the later part he expresses that no, he believes in God, he believes what the God has in store for him, and so he will use his skills to follow the will of God, and wherever the time and God's will take him, he will to follow that and go for that. So that's what he expresses in the later part of this poem. So let's see how beautifully with the dignity of expression and flexibility of structure and tone he has expressed this idea here in this poem. So how soon time, the subtle thief of youth, has stolen on his wings my 23rd year. So now time has been personified here. So this is, I should say, personification. Time has been presented as the subtle thief of youth. Time has been presented as thief. So a very beautiful use of personification here. So time, as we know, that has been present or is presented as what? Winged personality with a magic stick or so. So here he's saying time is the thief, the clever thief, the subtle thief. So how soon time, the subtle thief of youth, has stolen on his wings, as I said, is presented as a winged personality with a magic stick. So here the poet too is saying that how time has stolen the 23 years of my life on his wings. How cleverly, how subtly time has done that. So he has personified time here, and he is quite sorry that 23 years of his life are gone and he didn't do anything creative, no poetic work was done, no creative work was done. So actually he was studying in a university, and he focused on studies rather than doing any creative work. So later he laments that though he had the poetic talent, he had the skill, but he didn't use that skill to do any creative work. So that's what he is saying here in this poem. So now let's see what he has to say further. My hasting days fly on with full career, and my late spring no bird or blossom shoot. So here the poet has used alliteration. No bird or blossom. You can see the sound, consonant sound, b is being repeated here. So when a consonant sound is repeated in the same poetic line, quite close to each other, that is called what? Alliteration. So very beautiful use of alliteration here. And what he means by this, my hasting days, that is my early days, my youthful days, fly on with full career. So what does that mean, full career? That means with full speed. That my early days, my youthful days have flown away very fast, very speedily, in a very we can say quick manner. And my late spring, so spring is the time when there is fruition, when say bud there are blossoms on the trees and plants, when the atmosphere it denotes creativity, it denotes production, it denotes fertility. And here the poet is complaining and lamenting that my spring, the spring of my life, that is the youth, hasn't shown any bud or blossom. That is, he didn't produce anything, he didn't compose anything, he didn't write anything. So he is quite sorry that youthful time, which is a time for creative output and creativity and production, he didn't use, or he didn't put to use that useful time or important time of his life, and he wasted it. So that's the sorrow is, that's the lament is. And then he says, perhaps my semblance might deceive the truth. Now, semblance is appearance. So he says, perhaps my semblance might deceive the truth, that I to manhood am arrived so near. So what he is trying to say, that there are people whose appearance and their age differ. That means what they appear, they don't, their age is more or less than that. For example, I appear old, but I am not that old. So just on the lighter side, that the poet is trying to say that perhaps my appearance is like that, that my semblance is not as per my maturity, that though I have attained maturity, or I am quite near to manhood, adulthood, but my appearance, my physical appearance betray that, to deceive that truth. That means it doesn't show the reality that yes, I am really mature enough, I am really like grown up, so my appearance doesn't show that. So that is the poet's complaint here. And yet then now he says what? An inward rightness, further clarity, giving clarity to that, he says, an inward rightness doth much less appear. That my inward rightness, that is my maturity, appears quite less. My physical appearance is quite different. As I said, there are people who appear more or less than their actual age. So here the problem with poet is quite the same, that he is physically we can say beautiful, handsome, that his maturity appears less than his age. So is saying, an inward ripeness doth much less appear, that some more timely spirits in youth. That means only some blessed people have this kind of favor or grace of God in youth, that is endowed, given, bestowed. So this is only some happy people are blessed with such kind of thing. Only some lucky people are blessed by such kind of grace of God, or God say bestows only upon some sort of lucky people such kind of things, that their outward appearance and inward maturity are in balance, or they appear to be in balance. So only some lucky people have that kind of blessings. I don't have that kind of blessing. That's what he is lamenting and saying about. So that some happy sort of happy spirits, that he is trying to say, that some more happy spirits endure. So only the happy spirits, the lucky people are endowed with such kind of things, but I don't have that blessing of God, that my ripeness and my maturity and appearance differ. So now, but that is the octave part. So in quatrains, in 2 quatrains, there is the development of idea, there is the poet has presented the problem, and in the sestet part, in the 2 tercets here, the poet is culminating that idea, or bringing this idea to say conclusion, and he is saying, yet be it less or more, soon or slow, it will be still in the strictest measure even. So what he is trying to say, that whether it remains what say whether it is more or less, doesn't matter, that my maturity may appear less or more. It may come to me soon or slow, it doesn't matter. But if you measure my maturity, if you weigh or measure my maturity, then however strictly you do that, strictest measure even. So however strictly you do that, however strictly you measure my skills or talents or my poetic skill, it will appear balanced. Still here means balanced. So even in the strictest measure, the strictest way you use, it will appear to be balanced in that. So that's what the poet has to say, that he has firm faith in himself. He is confident, he has that belief in himself, that his maturity, that he has attained that maturity, and in whatever measure you may use, it will appear to be balanced, that how as per his age, he has attained that much maturity. And now he says, to that same lot, however mean or high. So that lot, that destiny, that fate, whether that is mean or high, inferior or exalted, or say very low or elevated, however it be or whatever it be, if I have the grace toward which time and the will of heaven, toward which time leads me and the will of heaven. So to that Lord, to that destiny, to that fate, whatever is there in store, whatever God has destined me with, or whatever God has written for me, so I would move towards that wherever time leads me. So in the first part it is about the free will, in the second part it is about the predestination. The poet is placing his faith in God. The poet is just placing his faith in God's doing, that whatever God has destined for him, he would do that. He will follow God's will, and he is a believer. He is a kind of devotee of God. That's what he is saying here. So toward which time leads me, so wherever time leads me, and this will of heaven, that is the God's will, that is what God has to or what God will do for him, he will move for that, he will move towards that destination. And all is, if I have the grace to use it so, as ever in my taskmaster's eye. And finally he puts a full stop to all such conflicts, and affirming and asserting that all this will be possible. He would be able to do this only if he has the grace to use it so. Means if he has that blessing to use his poetic talent to compose something in the supervision of God, so only then he'll be able to do so. If he is blessed by God, if he is favored by God to use his poetic skills and talents, only then he'll be able to do that. So whatever is in store for him, that will happen. Whatever he is predestined to do, that will happen. Whatever God wants him to do, that will happen. So he puts aside all his complaints, and finally just puts his faith totally in God, and says that whatever God has to do will happen. Whatever there is in his destiny, that will happen, because unless he has the grace, unless he is blessed by God to use his poetic skill, he won't be able to do anything. He won't be able to compose anything. So the taskmaster is God here, that God, unless orders him to do something, he won't be able to do. So all this would be possible if he is blessed by God, if God orders him to do. So that's how he places his faith in God, and very beautifully he has presented that how even sonnets can be used not only to express love for a beloved, because earlier poets and writers have done this in that way, that sonnets were used to express love for the beloved, whether it is Petrarch for Laura, or Shakespeare for Earl of Southampton, or say a dark lady. But here, deviating from all that, or going away from that set pattern of sonnets, the poet has used it to express his religious sentiments and his faith in God. So sonnets can be used even in that way. That's what shown by John Milton here in this sonnet. So I hope you might have understood the poem. It might be very much clear to you. So I'll come with more such videos, so keep watching, stay tuned. Till then, thank you very much. Bye bye.